Welcome to Veteran State of Mind. I'm Geraint Jones, and you know what? I'm really happy. Why are you happy, Gez? Well, because Brothers in Arms came out in payback today, and you guys have been supporting it, and I want to thank you for that, because I know times are tough, so if you do have the pennies and you've spent them on there, then thank you so much. And if you don't, and you want to get it, then I'm going to thank you in advance, and then I'll thank you post-book too. But thank you so much, and thank you so much for spreading the word about the podcast, keeping us growing, keeping us moving. You guys are suggesting guests. I really appreciate that. You guys are telling friends. Really appreciate that. And you guys are listening. You are lending us your ears. Really appreciate that too. And I'm going to keep working to bring you great guests. Hopefully give you a laugh. Maybe some episodes we might even put on the sensible hat and have a proper conversation like adults. But we will also talk about dick jokes and that kind of thing too. Because, can't take everything too seriously, can we? Got another great guest on the podcast today, but before we get to him, here is a very quick word about our veteran-owned or military-affiliated sponsors. I really appreciate it if you listen to this bit, guys, because without them, no podcast. First up, we have Frontier Risks Group. Frontier Risks Group, home of the world's leading practical training course in security risk management consultancy. This always gets me. Frontier Risks Group is an amalgamation of a number of leading companies in their fields, guided by a team who have equal experience and expertise in their respective domains. From security and crisis management, corporate risk, intelligence and analysis, compliance, workplace investigations, trauma response, and training consultancy. In case you didn't get it from that, if it ain't in there, it ain't in the world of security. These guys, they run courses. They've got people who have gone on to work at places like BBC, Netflix, CNN, Deloitte, BAE Systems, Apple, you name it, they've done it. And if you're a veteran or you're transitioning out of the military, then check them out. What they're doing is applicable to people of all ranks, all services. So check them at frontierrisks.com. frontierrisks.com, at Frontier Risks Group on social media. I really struggle saying Frontier Risks Group. I might have to ask them to change the name on this one. Check them out, guys. They're tagged up in the posts. Special thank you, as ever, to the Royal British Legion. They're not slowing down during lockdown. They are out there supporting British veterans and their families, as they have been doing for over 100 years. Anything from financial work, housing work, the mental side of things. They support a lot of smaller charities too. People don't know that as well. They just do so much stuff. You can find out all about it at rbl.org.uk, or you can find out about it at Royal British Legion on social media. They have great content. Please give them a follow. Please give them a share. Please check them out and give them a thank you too, because they do a lot of fucking good work. We are also brought to you by our good friends across the pond, Combat Comb Over. They make stuff what makes your hair look good. Enough said. Check them out at Combat Comb Over or combatcombover.com. They make pomades. If you want to look fresh, especially if you're in the military, nobody wants a case of helmet hair, do they? You can, if you're a para, you want to stick it in your pubes for your mates in the company, you can do that too. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with pomade. Probably works as lube. Well, buy a tub. In fact, let me know what you do with it. Stick it on toast if your kids are hungry. There you go. Bunch of different things you can use it for. Combat Comb Over. Check them out. Make your hair look good. And if you use it, send them a picture and they'll make you Insta famous, because I know that's what you're all after, you TikToking slags. All right. Finally, but definitely not leastly, we have Altberg Boots, specialist boot makers. They make incredible boots. Our guest, Dean Stott of the SBS, Dean wore the boots when he was doing selection for the Special Forces. I think that's a pretty strong recommendation. I, your humble host, Geraint Jones, wore them on 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. They never let me down. They are fantastic boots. They make them for all shapes and sizes and professions. Check them out. You don't have to be in the army to have a pair of these fantastic boots. I wear mine for walking now, and I am part of one Civ Div. So, check them out at altberg.co.uk. If you've got a pair, send us a picture. I'd love to see them. But make sure your feet are in there. I don't want to look at your gross feet. altberg.co.uk. Check them out. All right. Today's guest, Scott Davidson. This guy cuts the fucking mustard. Scott is a veteran of Iraq. And he works, I tell you what, he's not a man who asks for the spotlight, but Scott does a hell of a lot of work for veterans, especially in America. He puts on an event called Bourbiz. I'm going to let him tell you about that, but all I want to say is I fucking love this guy, and by the end of the podcast, you're going to love him too. Scott, if you're listening, me love you long time. Can't wait to chat again, mate. It's always an absolute pleasure. And you know what, though? Scott does have some... the downside about Scott is he was the reason I went out to Vegas at the end of January. And there was definitely a dip in the podcast regularity after that point. So he's not perfect because he's an enabler of my drinking. But you know what? I love him all the same. He's a fucking top bloke. Let's get into it. Let's hear from him. Mr. Scott Davidson. There was Rambo, there First Blood. Because don't get me wrong, like the later ones, I'm not saying, but the first one is brilliant, and then you got Taxi Driver,
right?
And then it's like we went away from military movies being about that for a while, and then people are like, oh, look, there's new movies come out, like for the first time we're talking about PTSD and stuff. It's like, no, people did it. We just went away from it, and that's the same with like studies about it as well. Like there's been a lot of studies, a lot of good, books with guidance about how to deal with mental issues for soldiers. Like they've had different names for it, like moral courage or moral fortitude and all that kind of stuff. But it's always been there. It's always been something, but it seems to be one of these things where we have to relearn the same fucking shit all over again.
Well, you know what, though? Look at it this way. I'll give you here's a perfect shift to what we saw. So, Taxi Driver, late 70s. Early 80s, we have First Blood, right? First Blood with Rambo, which, again, brings it to the forefront. We all know the story. But then look at, I think it was 86, Platoon comes out, right? And then you look at Platoon as an interesting shift because if you look at the cinema afterwards of Platoon, like Oliver Stone, did a fantastic job. We know that because he captured what really, what he wanted to do. Because we know he's got a Purple Heart. He has a Bronze Star. I think he was an Army combat infantry guy in Vietnam. He wanted to, he wrote that. And the crazy part about that is he wrote that in the 70s, right? He didn't get it rewrote into a movie into the 80s. But it changes things because if you notice how things start to go, it doesn't glorify, but it shifts the focus, like you said. Right, like the First Blood movies, and even look at Deer Hunter. Right, Deer Hunter deals with the unbelievable psychological damage of war. Right, I mean, we all know the scene with Christopher Walken at the terrible scene, of course, when they forced them to do Russian roulette when they were caught. Right, him and De Niro, that powerful scene when they're sitting there, and of course that's their game. And then we see it at the end because his friend is so far gone, and he loses it. Like there was that error, and then you get this different error where it didn't sit well with the public, and you know how, at least in America, it works. We're so forgetful of shit, right? So like that went away because then you had this beautiful cinematic movie of Platoon that kind of takes you back into Vietnam and tells you not from the PTSD side, but the horrors of what actually happens in war. But they kind of left that out. We don't see what happens to Chris Taylor when he gets on the bird and goes home, right? Because all he wanted to do is get the fuck out of there.
It ain't going to be good.
Yeah, right? Like him and Big Harold, all those people were like, I gotta get home. And then even O'Neill stabbed himself in the leg to get the fuck out of there because he doesn't want to deal with it anymore. But you don't see what happens afterwards, right? And I don't think, if we really think about that, we don't see... Go look at all the movies. I think about movies. When do we see something that brings back up in years after that? I think you see parts of it start to come up in like that movie, Thank You for My Service. And that was not until 2017, 18?
I don't know. That movie didn't help me. I was in a bad mental state at the time. I went to watch a screening of it. And it was like, and hey, like I said this, I actually mentioned it in Brothers in Arms, that they nailed the Iraq scenes. Like, they nailed them. When they were driving through that, I was like, oh, I'm going to be sick. Like, I had that feeling of like, oh, here we go. So they really nailed it there. But it just wasn't... wait, we're not going to use the video anyway, dude. But like, Scott very kindly just put a picture of Brothers in Arms up in the background. But what it didn't do for me was like, there was no offer of hope in there. It was like, you're going to come back, your buddy's going to blow his brains out, and then you're going to be on drugs, and then that's the end. I'm like, well, can we have a bit of hope? Can we have a bit of hope, please?
You know what, though? It's universal, too, because what it did was it just demonizes us again. because all it does is make us look like a bunch of fucking lunatics, because that's what now, like, you know what I mean? Like, the cinema influences everybody, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at Platoon to that movie, like, Platoon made us look, you know, like everyone's like, everybody for some reason, and I get it, right? They associated themselves with Barnes, right? I mean, if you ever talk to people, they remember Staff Sergeant Barnes, even though he kills the woman in the village and does every fucking thing wrong, and he's clearly the antagonist in the entire movie. You know, what do people remember? People remember Sergeant Barnes, and he says, "I am reality," right? And maybe at the time that was true, but then you look at, but that's what it's demonized, right? Because people are like, "Oh, what a fucking horrible person this person is." They don't see Chris Taylor and how he's conflicted. They definitely don't see Elias because he gets killed, right? And he's the only guy who was like the fucking, you know, the one thing. And then the one thing, so I find it interesting that you bring that up, is because then you fast forward to Thank You for My Service, and the same thing. Now what the movie does is, like you said, it makes it look very real, the battle scenes, but then it makes us all look like we're all fucked up and broken when they come home. Like the guy, like his pregnant wife, and he's punching the fucking walls because he's playing a video game. You know what I mean? Like in that movie, Thank You for Service. And you're right, it takes us all back to that bad place, but civilians then to just get that bad feeling of, we get that opinion of us, right? Because when are we ever portrayed, if we ever think about that, tell me a movie where we're portrayed in a manner that isn't in a war scenario, but they never talk about us coming home and what it really looks like, right? Because either it's all full blown, like Saving Private Ryan, Platoon, or it's like we come home and like, oh my God, he's got a drinking problem, or he's going to go kill somebody and he's on a rampage.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, like, I'm not saying that Thank You for Your Service is a bad movie per se, but what I'm saying is like, it's not a helpful depiction of veterans. You know, like, that's all I'm saying. Like, it might be an entertaining movie for people, and it might be a helpful movie for some people. Personally, I didn't think that it was, like, as a vet, like, my problem with it at the time, because I was at my low ebb at that point, was it made me feel worse. Because I was like, oh, fuck, there's no hope. You know, me and, I don't know if you know Nate Boyer, you know, me and him are working on a script. We've got, well, actually, we, you know, just talking about in First Blood, we've got Stallone on as an executive producer, and we're hoping to get that bad boy made this year. But the whole point of the movie is to show that there is hope out of it. And you know, one of the ways we're going to do that is by having the people that are involved in it, veterans acting, veterans directing, veterans writing it, because it's like, you know, guys, you actually have alternatives other than blowing your brains out and being an angry drunk.
And I think, you know, and that's a beautiful thing, because you know what I thought who did that well, you kind of go back to it. Like when Range 15 came out, like, listen, it's a funny movie, right? But it was very military focused as far as that. But I thought the documentary they did on it was very helpful, because it kind of showed that side of what you talked about, right? Where it's veterans helping veterans, and there was like a little bit of hope, and it had a good background to it, right? I always, like, it was one of the things that I enjoyed the most. Not because we know and love Jack, and he was a part of that, and all the guys that were in there. But it also, I love that it was all veterans in that movie, right? Yeah. If you think about, not all, but the vast majority were veterans, and it painted a better picture. It actually healed a lot of good people. And it helped them, right? Because it showed us all coming together as community once again, and showing us, hey, listen, even if we're fucked up and we got a bad thing, and we all are, right? You don't come out of that meat grinder the same. I don't give a fuck who you are, and you can say how resilient you want to be. You want to bullshit some fucking chick at the bar, you go ahead and bullshit a chick at the bar about that. But you're not going to bullshit guys who actually have been there, right? And you don't come back the same, because none of my friends did, right? None of anybody I served with, and even everybody I know, we all have maybe different experiences, but in the end, we all know that we didn't come out the same, right? Because of what it is. And I don't want there to be that illusion, but I also don't want to lose the pureness of what that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's what's great about what you're doing, especially with someone like Nate, who's also been through the ringer and everything else. And you, of course, you know, all you have to do is read that and they'll know. It's good to see that you guys are channeling that into it, because I think it's a very important part about it, especially PTSD and the mental state of veterans, that we're not all broken, that we're there for each other, and when we come together, we truly can do something amazing.
Well, one of the things we really hammer on in that movie as well is there's the PTSD, but it's also because it's Nate's charity MVP. It's about loss of purpose,
yeah,
you know, which is a big thing for us. And obviously, you and I have our projects on the go, which I think is what give us purpose. So let's talk a bit about that. Let's fill people in about a bit about your background first, because I always think that, rightly or wrongly, personally, I think it makes sense that it does carry more weight when someone's been there, done that. I just think that's human nature. If I'm learning to play football, then I'm going to want someone that's played football at an elite level to teach me. And I think in the veteran world, we're built on hierarchy. So I think it's important to know people's backgrounds. Doesn't mean it's dick measuring, but I think it's like a mutual respect kind of thing. And I have a lot of respect for your background. So let's hear it for the peoples.
So I mean, I actually have the benefit of something that's interesting. I served on all sides in the U.S. Army, right? And what I mean by that was I was lower enlisted, I was an NCO, and I was an officer, right? I got to live it through all sides. I came in as, private, worked my way up, became an E5, got my stripes, was an NCO for a while. I went to OCS, became an officer. I didn't deploy until I was an officer, to make that clear, though. But I did get to see, I think that was the best part about my experience in the service was I got to essentially eat shit like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And here's the unique part, which people may or may not understand about me. I had my college degree when I went in as enlisted.
Right.
And I think I told you the story. The guy completely fucking sucked with me. I don't hate Staff Sergeant Philip Torado. I'll say your name every fucking time. I don't care. But he was the recruiter. And I will always – listen, I was dumb, even though, I just gotten out of college and I wanted to serve. And I knew no fucking better, right? So even when talking to him and that whole scenario happened and say, hey, I want to join the Army. I don't know what the fuck I was doing. I'm like, I just want to join. How fast can I get out of here and join? And he's like, well, you got to do this, but I can have you out of here by Friday. This was a Monday. And I'm like, well, I saw there's like an officer's thing and I have my degree. I'll never forget this. And I go, how do I become an officer? He's like, oh, well, it doesn't work that way. And this is complete bullshit. He's like, it doesn't work that way. He goes, you got to go and this is what he said. He goes, you got to spend at least 2 years as being enlisted first. And then you can apply for something called OCS and then you can become an officer. And what I know at the time, that wasn't the true. You could actually go in, but I assumed it was because you get certain credit as a recruiter, right? To whatever. So whatever. I'm not mad at him because I had the best time as an enlisted guy. The barracks parties, everything you could do, but it gave me perspective because eating shit as a lower enlisted, and you do eat shit. I don't care, but you take it in stride, right? Yeah. Because you're a part. I loved it, right? Like, because I got to go out and do the shit I like every day, and I didn't care. I mean, it was like, there were kids that were, and I was older, right? Because I had my degree already going in. But there were kids that were younger than me, outright me, but I didn't care. It didn't matter because I was there because it was great that every day was different. Then making an NCO, I started to get more of appreciation for it, but I never forgot where I came from. And then being an officer, being a Mustang, as they say, at least in America. That really changed things, going down to Fort Benning and getting to see everybody from all walks, right? Because that was the greater part. Was like I had a guy that was this was the crazy part. We had all kinds of guys coming through there. We had helicopter pilots. I had SF guys. I had everything in the world that we all got together and we all got our asses kicked one more time because we were all a bunch of fucking, going back to basic training again, right?
So this is when you were doing your training to go from senior NCO. You were doing like a commissioning course.
Yeah, so our officer committee, OCS, Officer Candidate School, Fort Benning, the home for boys. It was great because, they break you down again. I mean, I think I told you, maybe it was on our conversation when we were talking to Jack, that I laughed because some of the traditions are ridiculous. Like, they would literally, when they'd march us to and from the barracks area to, like, our building, our schoolhouse building, it was embarrassing. Like, we'd wear these stupid fucking helmets. And they weren't our regular thing. They were called Kevlar covers, and they were, all black. And then we had to wear an ascot. Don't even ask me. It was ridiculous. But the most embarrassing thing was like in the old P.T. Barnum ways, there would be a guy with a fucking bass drum just smashing it behind us, and that's how we march. And you would hear for miles around, and everybody would stop what you're doing and look at us because we look like a bunch of idiots, like the clowns have come to town. And all they would do to keep us on step would bang this drum. and they marched us everywhere like that. And it was just I don't know, it just always laughed at me, like, because you'd see the jump towers and everything else be going on, and people would literally stop and be like, what the fuck are these guys doing? But
that was OCS.
That was OCS. And then, we get commissioned, and then I get ready, I head down, I go through my officer basic course, and then, of course, 9/11 happens. Many people may or may not know my cousin was killed in 9/11 hours. He was what's it called? The only saving grace about Jason dying was he was killed immediately. He was where the tower struck. He worked for Cantor Fitzgerald, which was the hardest hit firm. Where I don't know the percentage, but I think the far percentage of the employees, it was the most that had actually perished that day or killed. He had hung up the phone from talking to he would call his kids at the bus stop. I think, and I got to get the story right here from his former wife, Gina, but hung up the phone, and then I believe the plane hit like 30 seconds or 45 seconds later. We buried him, and they didn't find him. This is the crazy part. What they did find was years later in excavation, it was about that big. They found a part of his forearm, and they were able to, it was a skin, dried, and they were able to do DNA from his hairbrush from his house and then match it. And then eventually that's what was buried. So they did what we would say is the best proper burial we can do, but that's a separate thing. So the towers fell. It was personal to me. It was personal to me anyway as American, but it was more personal to me because I remember watching it happen. Of course, I had just come off a night shift, and then I got on the plane because I had to go home and see my family. My family was a wreck. Everybody was reeling too, because I lost friends too. A buddy of mine from high school, Brian Goldberg, he was killed in the towers. Went home. I was in ground zero little less than a week after it went down. I walked across the bridge. I walked all the way down. I sat there and did all this shit like everybody did. We put up missing posters. We knew better, but we still did it, because we wanted Jason back. And that was an interesting time, and that I think people should never forget. Is that was very somber. I do have some pictures from when I was down at Ground Zero, and it's just a fucking crazy thought. But then that was it. Like, my mindset changed, and all I wanted was war, right? Because now it's personal, and we were attacked like everybody else. I feel at the time at that patriotism. And then, so my first tour, we went in the invasion, 2003. I was with the 1st Marine Division in Task Force Tarawa. We were an Army unit, but we were attached to them. We were attached to the 2-8 Marines. We maneuvered up with them. We did the Nasiriyah, went all the way up, all the way into Baghdad. And we had our fair share of fights. We spent, we did the whole thing. We were right behind Jessica Lynch. We actually pulled Jessica Lynch. People don't know that. We pulled the 507th vehicles out of within 45 minutes of the whole attack on the 507th Maintenance Company. We were tasked with pulling our vehicles out, and we pulled those burning vehicles out of Nasiriyah, right there on the bridge on the border. Because they passed us. That's one of the things we'll never forget. We were on the sides of the roads waiting, and it was early, we had jumped, and 507th came barreling past us into the city. And we were waiting because the Marines were setting up to attack, right? And the 507th was basically lost, and they passed us. It was bizarre. But anyway, so we did that. We did part of the feint, and then we went up after they rescued Jessica Lynch. We did our next jump, and then, of course, then we settled up. And then after that, my job was just convoy security. I would run the Red Ball Express from, I was a first lieutenant then. I would run Red Ball Express routes from Baghdad to Tawil to, actually at the time, I think it's closed, Al Jaber Air Force Base. I don't think it's there anymore. And then same thing for Doha. I would do some convoys to Doha. And then I actually had gotten out of the service in 2004 after that whole incident. I was done. I had hurt myself pretty bad, my leg, my knee, while I was there during the invasion. I thought I was pretty much, my body was wrecked at that point. And I was like, fuck, I just, and I had, I got my MBA already. I was trying to go start my business and do all kinds of shit. And then I started to work for defense contractors, whatever. And then 06, obviously the surge happened. And then that's when I got the call. And we, it was gone. We were left. I left. I went down to Camp Shelby, Mississippi, May of 2006.
Is this a reserve call up or something?
Yes, it was a reserve. So it was a reserve call up. And so this is great. You want to hear how bad things were at the time.
Mm-hmm.
When I showed up I wasn't even I wasn't even in a unit. Let's put it that way. We showed up. I got orders to a place called Belle Chase, Louisiana, and I was like, "What the fuck is Belle Chase, Louisiana?" I show up and I'm on a Navy Reserve base, which I still don't get, but all right. So they get me to a Navy Reserve base, and I'm like, "What the fuck is going on?" And I find somebody finally. And they're like, yeah, just to give you an idea, there's only 7 people in the unit right now. Like, they go, we are that decimated as far as people. So everybody that's coming in here are from everywhere. I had guys that were like, literally, I mean, these were all people that were out that come into this unit. Not all, except for the 7. And they came in. I remember some guys were looking like nobody knew what the fuck was going on. And there were guys who were like, they probably had more uniform. I don't even know. One guy I know was from Desert Storm. Like, he was just like, it was insane. Like, I was like, look at this fucking crew. It was like the most motley crew you could imagine, right? And and I got to tell you, I mean, because we knew everyone was watching the news. We know how, and you know how bad it is too. In 06, it was a fucking disaster. And we knew what we were getting ourselves into, right? The surge was going to be the surge. It was going to be, we're going there for a reason. And, I remember, like, at first when we get there, we had our first KIA was 3 days in, I think. Yeah, it was 3 days in. And the first KIA was 3 days in. And I remember doing the ramp ceremony. I remember doing everything, getting the reports and doing all that shit. And just thinking, fuck, man, 3 days in, we're in, right? This is it. And then I got tasked out to work with, I worked with the commanding general at the time for only about 6 weeks. I worked with him. And then my reward, of course, for doing that was, hey, you're going to go do convoy security. And I was like, oh, fucking A, right. What's that mean? They're like, you're doing counter IED. And really, counter IED wasn't even, I mean, it was starting to be a word. We knew what they were, right? IEDs were everywhere. But I didn't know what the fuck that was, right? So, my mission after that, not to get into too much, but my mission after that was to work with, we had the largest contingent of, so we worked for something called a 377 TSC, right? Because it was a reserve unit, which is the 377 Transportation, Theater Support Group or Company. That's how much I know what it really was. They were responsible for all the logistics convoys in theater from Afghanistan to Iraq.
Right.
So any vehicle on the road at any given time in the day, and this is what I remember, I had 9,000 soldiers on the road at any given time. So out of the 9,000, and we're tracking IED attacks, and I would be in the convoys because I would eventually, what I eventually have to do was, it got so bad because, I mean, there were times we would be, I don't know, 15, 16 attacks a day on us, just in the convoy wise. I eventually went from trying to figure out how to defeat, because we were, and this is no knock on the military at all. I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way. It was just a very dynamic and ever-changing situation, right? And things weren't really integrated well. So we had to basically try to stand up. There were great units like SEXI, which is the Combined Explosive Exploitation Cell, and there was JIATO that was just standing up also at the time and really doing a great job. But for us, we just were disconnected in a lot of ways. So I had to take it basically on ourselves to go ahead and say, we got to figure out how to save lives of soldiers here because we're getting fucked up, right? Because it was getting to the point where when I would come in day and night, the reports were ridiculous. And I'm like, the same convoys get hit 6 times on the fucking same route. I'm like, we got to do something right now. This is no more. So we got the authority to go ahead and do that. And then what I started to do was I started to work with all the different individual units. And then I would integrate myself into the convoys, and then start to figure out, not that this was anything special, but we would basically start to get live TTPs. Like I'd get eyes on and get the live enemy TTPs of what they were doing. And then I combine them with the reports so we can have a faster response. So I'd be able to say, okay, we'll say ASR Michigan, which is fucking shithole outside of Ramadi. I'd go, okay, this is what's operating here. Here's the type of IETs we were looking at. This is what I saw happen, right? Here's what I need from you guys engineers. Get out there and do this, right? Because I need this fucking cleared. I need Jersey barriers here. We need HESCO barriers here. We need whatever it was. I need someone to go talk to these idiot Iraqi police officers right now. And if you got to bribe them or do whatever the fuck you got to do, but have them set up on this bridge to make sure no asshole puts fucking, because someone put 7 IEDs over here in the last 2 days. I know they could see them from doing it, right? That went on until I hurt my leg again. And that one was really, because my leg was already fucking ruined from the first time out. But then I got hurt again. I had to get surgery in theater. And then I got medevaced out, my left leg. Spent time in launch stool. I was in launch stool for 3 weeks or so. And then after launch stool, and that was all, and I think the extent of time in launch stool was bigger because when I was recovering in launch stool, I was watching the TV, and the 2 major things that happened on Fox News, and I'll never forget this because that was what was on, and this day room they wheeled me into, and I got really, and you're fucking sitting there and you're like, Jesus Christ, this sucks, and I will never forget the day because it was February, so the same day it was the Virginia Tech massacre took place. And I watched it.
So that's a Virginia Tech massacre for people. That's a college, an American college campus shooting.
Yeah, it was an American college campus shooting, and I remember it vividly because, it was the first time. Listen, we were not that we're ever desensitized, but I remember like you're watching a live broadcast. This always stays in my mind. And I remember hearing the audible gasp of almost everybody in the reporting room, right? Because it was a live broadcast, when they said, because originally they were reporting there's a shooting, and it became commonplace, and I hate to even say it, like maybe 5 dead, and that's terrible. Mm-hmm. When they said something like 28, you heard people fucking gasp. Like Jesus Christ, that's fucking crazy. And any shooting's crazy, but that in particular was like a shocking number. And then at the same time, Walter Reed scandal had just broke, right? Where the unfortunate, treatment of recovering soldiers of Walter Reed, we weren't allowed to go back because we had nowhere to go. And we were the first people, we were the first soldiers on the ground. I shouldn't say soldiers, first service members, because Marines were with us, everybody was with us. That arrived, we flew from launch stool to Andrews. We landed in Andrews. They took us off the plane. They put us in the hospital. I forgot what hospital. It was probably on Andrews. It was an Air Force thing. And then they all said, hey, none of you are going to Walter Reed. You're going to the 4 corners, right? And we're basically going to pick you because you're not. They're doing something called Warrior. They didn't call it Warrior Transition Units. They called it something else.
That Warrior Battalion, was it? Or like Wounded Warrior Battalion?
Yeah, Wounded Warrior Battalion. They go, you're going to go back and recover. And sorry. And what happened was, this is an interesting thing. Just again, this is never me complaining. I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but this is the reality of what the fuck. And this is what makes, I think, the military great. This is a pivot that they had to do. So they get us and they're like, listen, you're going to Eisenhower Medical Center in Fort Gordon. They said that to me. I'm like, okay, what the fuck am I doing there, right? And they're like, okay, this is where you're going. And I'll never forget this. So there was a bunch of us. There was probably about 6 of us on the plane. They put us on C-130s in cargo nets. I was on a stretcher. Actually, we all were on stretchers. And they put us in the fucking cargo nets. And you've been on military transport planes before, right? Nothing's comfortable about it. But it's nothing's worse than the fact that you just had surgery a couple weeks earlier, and like now I'm on the fucking rattle box. Like there's no way, you know what I mean? But the crazy part about this was we fly, we land. And I remember I was the highest rank. I was a captain at the time when I got hurt. And I was a captain, and everybody else was like E4 and below, like specialists and below. And I remember a chaplain gets on the plane. And they bring the ramp down. The chaplain gets on the plane. And he finds me. Right? He goes up to me. He goes, all right, hey, listen. And he was, I think he was a lieutenant colonel. And he said, hey, just so you understand, we're doing the best that we can. So I already knew. I'm like, all right, so it's probably fucked. Yeah, so that's it. When I hear we're doing the best we can, I know it's fucked up. But he's like, we have a school bus, and we're going to transport you in a school bus to the hospital. And I'm like, okay. And I'm not a complainer, but what they did was, it's innovative, I guess. They took us and they put us in between the seats. Like, and they picked us up. And that's how they brought us to the hospital in a yellow school bus. And I was like, all right, this is great. I don't care. We're getting to point A to point B. And that's how they brought us in. And of course, they did their intake. And we had some problems, though. We had a suicide within probably the first 10 days we were there. Now, I don't know. They called it a suicide. Well, it probably was a suicide. It was a drug OD. Young soldier, pills and drinking. And then it just became such a fucking shit show. This is no bullshit. Like, some of us couldn't even stand, right? I mean, we were sitting there and they were making us, because of that, they were making us show up to formation. And I remember calling the commander. They had to get a major. This guy was so pissed. He's so mad that he had to get this, because I was a captain and I was the highest rank. They had to get a major to come in to run the unit, because they said you had a captain down there. I remember him telling me the story. He's like, and they needed someone to outrank you, at least to maintain it. And this dude just fucking hated life. He's like, fuck, I got to deal with this. And I just remember I called him and I'm like, listen, I'll fucking call you. I ain't getting up. I go, I got enough trouble. I just want to get to physical therapy and get the fuck out of here, right? You know what I mean? I go, and the rest of these soldiers too, I mean, they're just having a rough time at it. So, can we make this easier? He's like, I can't. He goes, you got to show up in formation. And I go, then fucking mark me down.
What are you supposed to do? Like fucking leopard crawl?
Yeah, but they made us, and I'm like, eventually it got to the point where I just stopped showing up. I'm like, I'm going to call you. I'm alive. If you need to check on me, come to the hospital, and I'm here, right? I mean.
But that stuff's happening right now, isn't it? That they're getting people to turn up on formation. Like when apparently, like now the riots are happening, COVID's just not a thing anymore. But when it was a thing, they were like, right, well, we don't want to get you guys together because of social distancing, but we're going to all bring you together for formation to make sure that you're social distancing and then go home. It's like, what? I love the military logic, dude. It's brilliant.
Don't you find it amazing, though? I mean, it literally, like, I tried to even find a story about COVID. Like yesterday, and I'm like, I want to find a story. Like, is there something going on? Because I mean,
I saw a great one from New Zealand. And no disrespect to this woman, I wish she was still alive. I'm sure she was a lovely person. But the latest one from New Zealand she was 96 years old. Woo. She died. She didn't have COVID, and they're not trying to. Sorry, she had COVID, and they're admitting that she wasn't. She's admitting that that's not what killed her, but it was present, so she's been marked as a COVID death. She's 96 years old. Like, she's 96 years old. But, mate, I just think it's like, we won't go into the riot stuff, man, because it's just, but we got so much other stuff to talk about. Like,
you don't want it to, I mean, it's not about the riot stuff, but I wrote something today and I was kind of like thinking about it. And this is not, I know I've been following you, and I'm always curious about your perspective, because, you're seeing it from, yeah, well, you're seeing it from across, the way, and I like it because you're not, you are a red coat, but no, but I find you to have an objective opinion because you're not living it, right? So you're seeing it from an outside. What are your? I can give you my thoughts on it, and I'll say it this way. I wrote something this morning because, like, the reality is that people can't get mad when somebody, if we look at the history of systemic racism, right, in this country, right, and it's true, and if you fucking want to deny it and get fucking pissed at it, then you're a part of the problem.
Sure,
but
I agree.
Because I serve with, for me, I mean, I served with everybody of every color. Right? I always said we were green, and I thought that was the beauty of the Army, was that we were taught about respect. It's our pillars. Now, listen, not everybody follows it. There's always going to be bad apples, right? But I'm going to tell you, and you know this better than anybody else, when the shit actually hits the fan, I don't give a fuck who you are. If you are still somehow a racist in that moment, when there's some asshole you're caught in an L-shaped ambush or some shit like that, and they just hit off a fucking, or victim-operated IED that went into an L-shaped ambush, and we're fucking stuck in a kill zone. Those things are gone because you have to think about, I got this part, we're relying on each other. We can't have any type of divide. But what I was trying to get to was, you can't be mad at African Americans when they have tried everything in their power to tell you there's a problem, right, in this country. And they try to do it peacefully, right? Because even look at everyone, get mad as you want. I'm about to say it. Colin Kaepernick, he did it in a sense where he talked to Nate Boyer, and they came to what I thought was a reasonable agreement. It says, you know what? Don't sit there in the national anthem, but kneel. And what do we do before? And I don't know about you, and this is what I used to do. I would kneel and pray before I go into combat, right? If, like, I remember very specifically March 17th, I kneeled at that fucking border with all my soldiers. We put our hands on each other. We said, all right. And the chaplain came over and put his hands on us, and he fucking gave the prayer, right? And even in 2006, before every convoy thing, a lot of us would kneel because we'd be like, all right, this is it, right? You know what I mean? Like, if we're going, we're going. And it could happen. And my thought was, they tried so hard for so long, and they, if you do that, and when they're trying to do it peacefully and you still were mad at it, how can you be? I mean, someone has to have an outlet. You can't fuck with somebody for so long and expect them not to give back. It's just like if someone fucks with you, like if a bully fucks with you all day, you're going to lose your mind eventually and fight back, right? Yeah. It just, that's my thought on it, is that you can't get mad when you try everything in your power to say, hey, we have a serious problem here. Because if it's only one person, that's different, right? You know this, right? So one person, all right, I believe you, but that. But when it's an entire society and culture of someone saying, hey, we have been fucking oppressed, racial injustice, all these things, and they keep saying it over and over again, and then you have all these things that keep happening to them. And then, because it doesn't somehow affect you, because you know what I mean? Because that's really what it comes down to, right? Because they're not, like, if you're, let's just say even Caucasian, like, if you don't have to think about the fact, oh, there's a cop driving behind me and everything's okay. Like, if you don't have that, you don't know what it's like to go through that life.
Exactly.
And that's the problem I have with it.
The problem I have on top of it as well is, so, like, I'm getting a lot of shit off people at the moment because I'm saying, look, if you're a veteran and you've been to Iraq and places, I guarantee you've cheered when someone's house has been blown up. Like, oh, well, there was bad guys in the house.
Yeah.
But the bad guys didn't own the fucking house. Right? So you've cheered destruction of property, and now you're saying, oh, look at these animals savaging property. Now, the reason you cheered that building was because you were like, one, you were scared. And like, whether you want to admit it or not, you were scared. So when you see something blow up with the enemy in it, it makes you feel better. And it's that release of tension. But also because, you're not seeing someone's house at the moment. You're seeing something that shelters the enemy. Now, I'm not saying this is the case for all looters, but a lot of these people are smashing shit up. They're doing it because they're scared. They're doing it because they've been pushed. So as a veteran who's cheered fucking shit blowing up in other countries, get off your fucking high horse and stop saying like, oh, these people are terrible. I would never do that. Because you did it.
Yeah.
I guarantee. I've done it. I fucking cheered someone's house getting blown up. Now, was I thinking it through at the time? No, but a lot of these people aren't fucking thinking it through too. They're lashing out. And when the Iran situation was happening a few months ago, there was a lot of people who were all on board fucking bombing Iran, and I was pissed off at the time because I'm like, look, it's gonna be normal fucking people who you'd probably get along with who are gonna pay the price of this. Right. Oh, fuck them, it's Iran. Now it's at home and it's people's businesses. Oh no, we don't want it to happen. That is racism. The fact that you're okay with a culture on the other side of the world getting blown up and not your own, that is racism. You're not seeing people as people. You're distinguishing them by religion. You're distinguishing them by colour. That is exactly what racism is. And here's the other thing, mate. I challenge anyone to look themselves in the mirror and say they've never had a racist thought or done a racist act. I fucking have. I'm sure everyone else. There has been time. It might even be a positive racial one. You might go, oh, this person's Asian, they're great at math. Still racist. Still judging someone on the thick skin. We all do it. We're like, it doesn't mean that we're all doing it maliciously, but this idea, I've had some people today say systematic racism doesn't exist. I'm like, fucking, you, what planet are you on, man? Like, I have friends who are like fucking great people. I hear stories, mostly in America. I will say, I do think Britain, we're a bit further along.
Yeah.
I have friends who are dedicated to their partners, and their partners' families have wanted them to have nothing to do with them because of the colour of their skin. I've had friends who are serving in the military who have been pulled over by police officers and they feared for their lives because of that interaction. It's fucking nuts. It happens. If you pretend it's not happening, you're part of the fucking problem.
Actually, you summed it up beautifully. That is absolutely true, what you just said. And so the one thing, let's hit on a couple things. Everything you said is absolutely right. Not everybody's perfect. We're fallible, right? We're humans. But you cannot deny that there's systemic racism because the system was built on it, right? If you look at socioeconomic factors, let's take out individual racism, right? Like against individuals. So I do a lot of work, obviously, with my company in government contracting, right? The government recognizes, and this is from far back, just in this country, that there's so much inequality that they had to create special socioeconomic categories for businesses just to allow, let's just say, minorities to even catch up and get some type of opportunity, right? Like whether it's, historically underutilized business zones that they would designate, or, they call them 8As here. 8As basically kind of cover, just the general, the focus of minorities, to give them contracting opportunities to build a business, right? Because they know, like, they cannot extend it to that there is that social inequality, right? The government recognized that in those programs, and it's been around for years. So even the government recognizes that there's social inequality, just even from a business perspective, right? But I want to kind of go back to just something you had said about Iran, because this is a good point. It's the fucking people, and I'm going to say this right now, that were cheering, let's go bomb these motherfuckers. You said it best just now. It's not their sons and daughters that are ones on both sides that are going to bleed and die. If I go to an Iranian right now, and you, like, just the normal guy or girl who's trying to fucking just make it, right? They don't want war. They don't want to be crushed under the boot heel of either side. They want peace because they want to raise their family in fucking relative peace and try to enjoy it instead of doing it. So I find it, like you said, terrible that everyone's like, oh, go ahead and attack this other country. It's not so easy because they're not the ones who have to sit there and, fucking just write that letter, hand that flag over, and sit there and console your friends and say, fuck this guy and this girl. We're never going to see them again.
And dude, it's the ripples as well. Like, that passenger plane that got shot down was mostly full of Canadians. Canada weren't even involved. Yeah. But I keep saying this to, like, when you have a war, you don't get to just pick out bad guys that die. It's not that. The ratio of innocent people that die to quote-unquote bad guys is huge. Like, you know what? One of the pick questions, just on racism that I'd like, or systemic racism that people might be interested in, check out the book by Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers, and it basically explains how, like, hard work, you need it to succeed, but then there's all these other factors that will then come in. So, for instance, I've been very lucky that I've been born to the parents that I've been born to, in the town that I've been born to. You and I both saw Iraq at, like, for a soldier. We were in Iraq at a good time. We served in a good time. We saw, like, a lot of soldiers don't get to see active service. We did. Because of that, I have that book that's behind you. Because of that, we're connected. There's all these little things that go in. That stuff isn't down to hard work. A lot of that stuff is down to circumstance. So I don't like this thing of, if you live in the hood, you've got just as much chance of making it as somebody who was born into a middle-class family in Connecticut. Of course you fucking haven't. Doesn't mean you can't make it, but the odds are stacked against you. And systemic racism doesn't need to mean that people are going out actively, like, it doesn't mean people are putting robes on and going out and actively trying to get you. It just means that the area you're living in is maybe more impoverished, so you don't get as much money for school programs, so you don't get education. It's all these little things. And what I don't get what's gained by saying no, I don't believe in it. Like, are you just trying to put are people just trying to put themselves on the other side? Is it just they just want an argument? Or I think, to be honest, mate, I think what it is they don't want to realize that they have a leg up in life because they feel that somehow demeans the hard work that they do, which it doesn't. You can believe in systemic racism, and you can have had all the privileges in the work. And you can still work hard. It doesn't, like, just because you are on the privileged side of things doesn't mean that you're not a hard worker. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve what you've got. It just means be grateful for what you've got and let's try and level the playing field and let everyone else fucking have the same thing.
It's empathy too, right? Because I go back to the whole thing. It's like you, like, again, and they bring up the thing where if you're afraid, like this thing, it happened the other night too. Like, if you have to be afraid because you're driving, give me a break. Like, I mean, that you have to acknowledge that exists, right? Because I mean, if you and that's what breaks my, and that's the other part about it. It breaks my heart because I hear stories. I'll tell you this. This is a story, and it stayed with me. And this actually is what really changed. It happened before the war. It changed my perspective because it was in there. It was in uniform when it happened. And I'll never forget this. We were inside, and this is not to disparage a state, but fuck you anyway if you think that. Fine. I was on a training mission with still to this day my best friend. He's African American. We were both, we were both first lieutenants at the time. It was 2002. It was August of 2002, and we got tasked down to do TDYs, a temporary duty, to get trained up on a system because we knew we were going to Iraq at that time. Regardless of anybody wants to fucking think, we were getting ready, right? And we got sent down there, and I'll never fucking forget this. We were both in uniform. We went to a place to go eat lunch, and we weren't familiar with the area. He had grown up in the South, though, right? And I remember walking in, we sit down, and no bullshit, the guy comes over, I assume was the manager. He goes, "You guys, we don't want any trouble, but you can't eat here."
Whoa.
And we're both in uniform. And this is one of the things that stuck with me. So I got a fucking temper, right? And I always have been, right? Regardless of, it's not about the army or PTSD. I had a temper since the day I was born, right? So, and I have no problem. If you want to go, we're going to go, right? I may lose, but I'm going to fucking try, right? So I stood up, and I remember, and out of respect for him, because he doesn't want his name out, I'll say it. But I remember him telling me, he goes, "Listen to me." He goes, "We ain't making it out of this fucking town if you do this." He goes, "Walk away, let's go." And I get in the car, and we left, right? And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding. We were in uniform. Yeah. Like, we weren't like civilian clothes. We were in legit uniform. And it was like a small shit, because it was like, you know what, I was in fucking right outside of Redstone Arsenal. I wanted to try the barbecue, which I heard is amazing. We found a little shit shack on the side of the road, and they absolutely were like, "No, get him out of here." And I stood up, and he's like, and at that point I realized how deep it ran back then. If you think about that, this is 18 years ago, and I'm sure it's gotten nothing worse. But yeah, they absolutely. And he said, "We won't make it out of this town alive if you fucking do something right now." And he knew better. And to this day, we talk about that moment, and because he had experienced that, and that broke my heart a little bit too, because I love that motherfucker. We went to war together, and best man at my wedding, everything you could think of. And to think that he had to deal with that, and I never saw it until really that. I mean, you kind of see it, but that was like a very pivotal moment when I see things, because we're in uniform. Yeah. We were ramping up. 9/11 had already happened. So there's a wave of patriotism, and these fucks decided that he couldn't eat at that restaurant. And it was the craziest thing I've ever. To this day, I never forget that. But that always angered me, and it really changed my life perspective.
I think it's very hard for British people to get their heads around, mate. I had a lot of resistance to the idea when I first heard it, because I'm like, nah, that's not how it is. Because you don't think that way. You think other people don't. And it's only after years of going back and forth on extended vacations to the States, and, I didn't really have many black friends in the UK. Now I've got friends that grew up in different parts of America who are black. And hearing stuff like little things, like people like will see them coming and switch to the other side of the road to walk past, because it's like, and then looking at them as in, this person's dangerous. Why? Because they're black. I'm not saying, and like, you know, I'm not saying that only happens. That could happen if you've got face tattoos. If you're a white guy, people might do that to you. But the fact is, it happens, and to be followed around stores and all this kind of stuff, it happens. And I've had a lot of back and forth with a lot of British friends of mine recently because they just, because you haven't experienced that, it's very hard to accept it. And the reason you don't want to accept it, if you're listening to this right now and you don't want to accept what me and Scott are saying, it's because you're a good person. You don't want to believe that happens in the world. So you're resisting it for a good reason. Unfortunately, the people who are around this world, some of them are not as good as you are. And some of them do not live by the standards you do. And some people are still in 2020 flat out fucking racists. Yeah. Bottom line. Like, we saw a lot. There was a surge in racism. I'm not knocking Trump because, honestly, for me, most politicians are all the same. They're that for themselves as far as I'm concerned. But what I will say is that I think in populist politics in the UK and in America and in Europe, we have seen people feel like, because people are like, oh, wow, there's a resurgence in racism. It never went away. People just people were just hiding it. And then it's come out. But mate, before I want to draw a line under racism because I think you and I both on the same page that it is a load of fucking there's a load of fucking bullshit, and that is something that everyone needs to stand up against. And like I said, if I understand anyone who has resistance to what we're talking about here, because it took me a long time to accept, because I just didn't want to accept that people in my own country or in America were bad like that. But it's true. But mate, I want to talk a bit about Bourbiz.
Yes.
So fill people in. Fill them in. What is Bourbiz?
So Bourbiz really comes out of a concept I don't know, you know, Justin Constantine. Justin and I, you know, when we were recovering, I met Justin and again, I'll always plug this organization, IVMF, Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University. They run something called EBV, which is Entrepreneurial Boot Camp for Veterans with Disabilities. I was actually teaching at the national convention. I met Justin there, and I always tell people this. And Justin came in, you know, and Justin, of course, has had, you know, he had a horrific wound from Iraq. He was in Ramadi in 2006 in October was when he was wounded. He was shot in the head, but he was shot in the back of the ear, and then it came out the front of his face. He survived. He's an inspirational speaker now. He inspires me every day. He motivates me. But Justin and I we met that day, and he does like he always does. He's like, let's go have a drink. So we went and had a drink, and we just started talking about just how difficult shit was for people, like for veterans recovering in general. That's where it comes from. Like what it's like to transition out of the military, right? And I have, one of the things that I brought up to him was, I specifically remember, and this was the craziest thing and a part of it. We had when I was recovering in 07, there was a young E4 female specialist. She had a significant head wound. She had serious head trauma from an IED, and she was recovering with us. And she had significant short-term memory loss, right, from the wound. And she was 20. Mm-hmm. And she had to wear a fucking a thing around her neck. It was like, back then it was, it's not a BlackBerry, but it was like those old Trios. You remember those things? They were a Trio. It was like a BlackBerry, but it was like a thing that was like, it was like a little electronic, like I forgot the name of it. Anyway, it's just an electronic reminder thing, right? And what it would do is, because she would forget so much, like she would have to put things in immediately and remind her to go to things because she couldn't remember. And I remember I walked out of I was in my office with the Physical Evaluation Board liaison officer. We were like, this was this weird little place there. They're called Pueblos in the Army's world, because they were medically retired. And she was crying when I came out of the office. She was just in the corner crying. And I went over to her, because I had to know why. And I go, hey, are you okay? And she said, sir, they're trying to Article 15 me. And, Article 15 is a non-judicial punishment. As you know, like fucking up, if you fuck up, that's how we get you, right? We're going to, we can do a million things. I don't know what they call it in the British Army, but basically they can take your pay. They can make you do extra duty. They can fuck with you. Basically it's, again, non-judicial punishment. And I go, what are they trying to Article 15 you for? She's like, I don't know, but they keep saying I'm missing appointments. And I'm like, wait a minute. I go, and I knew her story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, who is trying to Article 15? And she said so-and-so's name. I'm not going to say his name. And I said, you stay here. I'm going to go take care of this. And I went in and I went and found this individual. He was an E7. And I said to him, and non-deployed E7, which at the time, of course, I had a chip on my shoulder and pissed me off because I'm like, that really fucking.
What's an E7? Like a sergeant major or something?
E7 is a sergeant first class, so like E9 would be a sergeant major, so he's 2 down. But he's
pretty up there.
E7, you're up there. Yeah, you've been around. Like you probably at least have maybe if you're really good. Shit, I've seen 12 years, but usually it's 15 to 17. Right? Okay. Yeah, so it's not like you're not off the you're not a newbie. You're definitely you've seen your share and you're a career soldier. And I said, listen, you better cut this fucking out right now. I go, she can't even fucking remember something from 5 minutes ago, and you're trying to put more trauma on this fucking port. I go, Jesus Christ, guy, let's get this done. I go, you got 24 hours. I actually said that I remember specifically. I go, you got 24 hours. I go, make it right. Go deal and work with her. But if I fucking hear in 24 hours that she's not being taken care of properly and you're not threatening her and dealing with it appropriately, I'm going to tell you right now, I absolutely am going to go over your head and I'm going to fucking call the goddamn hotline. And at the time they established this hotline because the maltreatment of soldiers at Walter Reed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I go, that's what. So that's exactly what happened was 24 hours came and went. He did nothing like an asshole. And I'm like, okay, good to go. I'm absolutely. First thing I did, though, before I did, so I will tell you, I do remember, I did call my chain of command because it was still in existence, obviously. I called overseas on a DSN line. I got a hold of fucking 2-star general, and I said, hey, sir, listen. I go, I explained the situation. I go, I wanted you to be aware because if there's any blowbacks, I know they're going to call you, my chain of command eventually. I go, so I just want to let you know. He lost his mind. He goes, if you're fucking he goes, this is not real. He goes, if that's the truth, I'm fucking calling. At the time, I believe it was General Shoemaker, and who was the Army, like the Army Surgeon General, and or the head of Medcom. I might be wrong on what the title was. And then, so within 24 hours, I made the call right away, and within 24 hours, they came down and did an investigation, and they separated everybody. We had a town hall. They interviewed everybody. And I remember the major pulling me in there, that guy that they brought in. He goes, I fucking want you out of here. Like, you have no idea. He goes, I got a goddamn I got Congress calling me. I got a 4-star general fucking calling me. And I go, but I came and told you to fix it. But, and then whatever. They expedited me very quickly out of there. I got retired what I thought would take months, I was fucking home very quickly. Nice. Which is a completely another story, which we'll talk about transition. But to come back to that was I told that story to Justin and it resonated to him because we both looked at each other and realized that if that's happening to an E4, and the only reason it was amplified to where we got her help was because we happened to be there. And we happened to be officers at the time to do something. And Justin, who at the time, what people forget, he was a major at the time. He had volunteered. He was a JAG officer. He was an attorney by trade, too. He was a JAG officer who volunteered to go with the Civil Affairs Unit into Ramadi. And he was only in country for 3 weeks before he got shot in the head. So, he had different opportunities, too, because he was a field-grade officer who had this horrific wound, which most people don't even survive. And everybody did everything in the world to cater to him. Now, he recognizes that, right? And he recognized, and he even said to me, he goes, we have to do something to get the ones who, listen, wars are fought in one of the backs of E6 and below, mostly E4 and below. Let's never forget that, right? So that's where Bourbiz actually came from, right? It evolved from that concept of the 4-star generals and the colonels and the sergeant majors of the world. They really have a Rolodex when they get out, and it's an incredible network. And everybody wants them because that is a fucking awesome photo opportunity. They got this great Rolodex to talk to people. They're going to hire them because they have led men and women in combat and they have all this responsibility. Yet we were given E4s, multi-million-dollar equipment, and all these things, right? But yet, fuck them, right? They're not getting the same opportunity. So we said we need to be able to come together and figure out how do we make things where people feel that they can let their guard down a little bit, remember the camaraderie of service, and then get every resource available out there. Whether it's finding a job, starting a business, or you just want to talk to people, suicide prevention, PTSD, fucking all that. I said, why does it always have to be, it's got to be, if it's a convention or something, it's always got to be focused on one thing. Whether it's, it's going to be entrepreneurship, or it's going to be, it's going to have to go find a job. It's never everything. So that's where Bourbiz came out of it, where is we said we want to do a one-stop shop. And, it took us years. We fucked it up a lot of times till we got it right. We started introducing liquor, and we started making things.
Oh, yeah, you did. I'm still hungover from Vegas, bro.
Yeah, we did. You remember? Yeah, from what you remember from Vegas. But that's what we noticed was Bourbiz was take every resource out there, have them mingle, take out really what really being behind the tables, and have resources mingle with veterans and military spouses so they can have that conversation. Because when you walk, from Vegas, when you walked that room that night, you walked into some of the most successful veterans in our space and time, right? And they were just there. And people didn't realize, you had all kinds of people there. The interesting thing was you had all kinds of people in that crowd that night. We had Pierre Garcon, who plays for the NFL, he played at the time for the San Francisco 49ers, and he had played for the Redskins. He was in the crowd, So it's interesting to see the different sides of how everybody interacted that night, to everybody from the Black Rifle guys, to the Grunt Style, to from Team Rubicon, to anything you could think of. They all came together. But that's our events Justin and I wanted to take down barriers to access to resources, make it a fun environment, and then remind you of the camaraderie that we had together while we served.
I fucking loved it, dude. I can't wait for the next one. And you've just done an online one too. You had Gary V on there. Like, you had some big hitting names on there.
We did. So, we ran it. So we had Gary V. We had, of course, the lovely Jocko Wilnick. We had Ralph Galati, who was a POW at the time with John McCain. We had Flo Broberg, Medal of Honor recipient, Justin Constantine, Chef Rush. So I was proud of that because it was great to see that people were willing to do it, right? Because when this is something we'll tell you, especially about the Gary V organization and Vayner Media and all that. And I thought this was the best part about working with them. When we explained the mission of what we were doing, and we said, we have no ask, it's always free for everybody. We showed them the videos of what we do. There was zero hesitation on them wanting to help us. And I think that speaks volumes about Gary V and Steve, which was, I think, he's the executive vice president we work with. And the other people in that organization they said, we're here to help and we want to help. And did it, right? I'll tell you what, I thought his message was great. And then Jocko, of course, and everybody, it was just good to see everybody kind of come together from that level down. Gary V owns the space, right? Where there's no doubt about that. He is probably the most sought after guy in the world to get that. And we were just proud to see him come out for the veteran community and speak and want to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's sick, mate. Mate, we need to wrap this up, but let's do another one soon, man. Where can everyone find you online on the interwebs?
So I think for the purpose of Bourbiz, Bourbiz.com, Bourbiz.com, that'll give you any events that we're doing from our nonprofit standpoint. I would say to check that out, and that could lead you to all our social and to everything else that we're doing from the veteran and nonprofit space if you want to find us. And everybody else out there who don't know about the Veteran State of Mind, go buy his book. It's actually really, really good. It's in paperback too, by the way, but I don't fuck around. I got the hardcover, as you can see. Yeah, it's dog-eared, but there's nothing I can do about that because it's a bad habit of myself ruining books that way when I kind of fuck them up a little bit. But it's a great book, and I'm honored to be on with you today.
I appreciate it, mate. That saves me having to plug it when I do the outro. Mate, thanks so much for coming on, buddy. So after that, I think you will all agree with me that Scott is a top bloke. Definitely looking forward to catching up with him on the podcast again in the future and in Vegas for shenanigans. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Just before you go, if you can lend me your ears for 1 minute, the book, Brothers in Arms, came out today in paperback. if you've got the pennies, you could pick up a copy. I really appreciate it. If you can't get it and you still like to help your mucker G out, if you could just make a post about it. If you haven't got the money to make it to buy it, if you can make a post about it, maybe someone else will buy it. I really appreciate it. Writing is my full-time job, and if writing goes well, it means you can do more podcasts, basically. So there's something in it for everyone. Something in it for everyone. But mostly me. I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna be my name on the bestseller list, innit? But you'll all be there in spirit. Guys, fucking love you lot. You know what? I'm really proud of, as a veteran community, there's a lot of shit going on in the world. But here we are, standing strong together, lifting each other up, not putting each other down. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, isn't it? I'm giving you all virtual hugs right now. I'm assuming that there's consent by the fact that you've come onto the podcast. So I'm reaching in through the microphone, I'm reaching down and I'm touching you. And I hope that you enjoy it, because I'm enjoying it. Who have we got up next? Monday, Coach Mike Chadwick will be in the building. Love Mike. Looking forward to the episode. It's a banger. Already recorded it, so I can tell you it is good because I've already been there. It's happened in the past. There's a past, the future. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to get off the microphone now. Have a great fucking day. Brothers in arms. Me love you long time. Catch you guys soon. Love you. Bye.
Yeah. Listen. Shout out Teaser. You told me not to worry, and you wouldn't break my heart. You told me you were sorry, yeah, my whole world fell apart. You said it's not my fault, and yeah, I've never done you wrong. I'm grinding to a halt, now I can see you're moving on. I promised I'd get better, and I told you things would change. You keep me to the gutter, yeah, I'll never be the same. I've gotta let you go, now live your life and spread your wings. And yeah, you put on quite a show, and pulled the puppet strings. And are you sure that you don't want me? Remember all the pain, or maybe you should thank me. It's your loss and my gain. I'm leaving now forever, I won't hang my head in the shame. But yeah, you've taken me for granted, and you should feel ashamed. You sold a dream to all of us, a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle, yeah.
Life's hard, I know that, still wouldn't change shit. I wouldn't go back, yeah, I wouldn't go back. Feelings I hold back, memories fade, yeah, they go fast, yeah, they go fast. Good times they come and go, survive the highs and lows. Just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose. Good times they come and go, survive the highs and lows. Just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose.
It's time to speak the truth now, and let me get this amplified. Not holding back, no one personifying terrified. I thought I had the knowledge, what it takes to save a life, until I lost 3 friends in 1 week to suicide. Now let me ask you this, do you think you could sleep at night? Depression is consuming you, your happiness seems out of sight. I'm putting up a fight, I'm screaming out these battle cries. I'm just a lonely soul, a man amongst the men that died. I lost my faith in everything and sat down with the devil. Spoke with him for hours, yeah, he made it sound so simple. I don't know how it got this bad, I guess it's accidental. But before I knew it, I had a gun up to my temple. I was ready to end it and call upon the curtain. No amount of drugs or alcohol could take away the hurting. I couldn't see another way out, and it wasn't working. As I cocked the gun to my head, the devil started smirking. I looked at him confused about his motive and direction. Yeah, it hit me, I've been looking at myself, it's my reflection. I won't forget it, that feeling of acceptance. I can beat the guy that's looking back with knowledge as my weapon. Cause it's inside of you, and it's inside of me. The real killer in depression is to suffer silently. The journey's rough, the road is long, you've just got to accept. You haven't got to see the whole staircase, just the first step. And have you ever felt to pack your bags and run away? The black sheep of your family, an outcast or a lonely stray. But let me tell you now, it's normal if you feel that way. You wanna leave the shit behind and go and find a happy place. What if I told you the real thrill is in the chase? No matter how fast you can run, you'll never find a hiding place. I've lived a story that I'm telling, I know talk is cheap. I'm living 8 stories up, but I'm 100 deep. I said in Superman I'd live and laugh and dance for days, until the day my casket lays. It's hard up in these darker days. We focus on the latest craze and cloud our minds with purple haze, trying to understand the reason why our birth takes place. I'm near the end now, and I guess it's time for closure. I've lowered the gun from my head, returned it to the holster. I'm strong enough to carry on with weight upon my shoulders. My letter to the world, confessions of a soldier, yeah.
Life's hard, I know that, still wouldn't change shit. I wouldn't go back, yeah, I wouldn't go back. Feelings I hold back, memories fade, yeah, they go fast, yeah, they go fast. Good times they come and go, survive the highs and lows. Just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose. Good times they come and go, survive the highs and lows. Just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose.